Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you all for being here today. You know, we all know that helping students should be a high priority, and I know that you all see this. I've read your testimony, and you've provided a lot of good information about programs that colleges can adopt to improve student outcomes. But only a few colleges are showing any real leadership in this area. So I want to focus on federal policies that can push schools harder in that direction. So, Mr. Jones, could I start with you? Your organization works with schools and states to help improve outcomes for students. In your opinion, do colleges have enough incentives to improve student success?
They don't. I mean, typically, the old incentive was what we call the 10-day or the 14-day count. You got your money based on whether you were there on the 10th day. If you weren't there on the 11th day, it didn't make any difference.
Yep.
And so states have moved rather rapidly to change that. The federal government is very powerful in the money that you provide, both in the Pell money, but other grant programs that you provide. So providing incentives to graduate more students, graduate them in a more timely way because they'll incur less debt, get them through remediation and into credit-bearing classes. Those are all incentives that you could easily do and put in programs.
Good. And so I just want to underline what I'm hearing you say about this is putting financial incentives in place so that schools have a reason to invest, not just in getting students in through the door, but in having them succeed. You know, when we talk about improving student success, we aren't just talking about getting students through a graduation ceremony, you know, getting them in the robe and walking them across stage. We're talking about making sure that students leave college with an education that helps them succeed. So I wanted to turn to you on this, Mr. Resnick. Which colleges are doing a better or worse job at making sure that students are prepared for good jobs after they graduate?
That's an increasingly important topic in my world. Where I think the scalable growth is in, again, using data and analytics to help us advise and promote good career and post-graduation knowledge for our students. We now, as part of our platform, have an alliance with a vendor called Burning Glass that is tracking data for job listings across the country every day. And as students come in at Georgia State and pick majors, they actually can see for any major that we offer the 25 to 40 careers that are most likely to result from an empirical basis from majoring in that area. And then they can see live job data about what job demands are like, what its starting salaries like, what qualifications.
Let me just stop you there, though, Mr. Resnick, and I very much hear your point about helping students find out what career paths may be most informative for them. But I particularly want to focus on, I heard you say, I think earlier, or know that you referred to predatory institutions, that we're not just talking about how we get more students to study things that are going to be useful. It's about whole institutions and where institutions are focused. Do you want to say just a word about that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we see at Georgia State the kind of back end of some of these predatory practices. Because our student population is largely at risk, they're often the students targeted. We have 2 students arriving at Georgia State this fall as transfer students who already have $100,000 of debt. And we hear these stories and ask what happened once they get to campus. And it's usually a trail of broken promises and misleading claims. Oftentimes these students have very little usable credit. We've had students who have been approached by lenders who actually tell them not to fill out the FAFSA because it's so complicated, but fill out this one sheet of paper and they can get the same money, never fully explaining the differences in terms.
So $100,000 in debt and very little credit that will actually transfer. You know, for-profit colleges seem more interested in shareholder success than in student success. About 1 in 5 students who borrow to attend a for-profit college default on their loans within 3 years of leaving school. That means, on average, that for-profit colleges are failing at least 1 in 5 of their students. So let me just see if I can wrap this up really quickly with a note here. Mr. Jones, what kind of policies would give for-profit colleges an incentive to improve outcomes for their students?
Well, I think you should look to the accreditors. You authorize the accreditors. Right now, it's all about resources for colleges, but it ought to be about outcomes, both in terms of completion rates, on-time completion rates. Do they get jobs? What kind of debt ratios do they serve? And the accreditors, I think, have been very lax at looking at any of those factors in terms of reaccrediting schools. I can't imagine the ones they've reaccredited just can't meet those, haven't met those standards. So I'd look to the accreditors in how they do this and rewrite that.
Good. And I'll just put this in.
For both private and public.
Thank you. Thank you. And I'll put this in as a question for the record for everyone here. You know, we just have to go back to the fact that the federal government is shelling out $150 billion every year to help students attend college. And some schools are doing their part to make sure that those dollars are well spent, but some are not. As we work on the Higher Education Act, it is critical to focus on whether all colleges that dip into that $150 billion have the right incentives to invest in the success of their students. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.